Hello, welcome to Grafana LGTM Stack course. My name is Mohammed and I'm very happy and excited for this course. This is the second section and video. As you probably remember, in the first video, in the first section, we talked about Grafana Loki and we installed Loki within our Kubernetes cluster. And also I just explained about configuration options available with Loki, such as object storage, a multi-tenancy, installing Loki through a scalable mode, read path, write path, backend path, schema config, and so on. It was very useful. But for this section, for the first step, I'm gonna install Grafana as a visualization tool to connect Grafana Loki to Grafana to visualize our logs. I think Grafana is the best choice for us to visualize our data, and this data can be logs as well as metrics, traces, and also, for example, SQL queries of your databases and so on. But before that, as you can see here, this is the GitHub repository of this course, and its name is Grafana LGTM. I need your support. I need your contributions. You can contribution on this GitHub repository. You can open issues if you want. If you have any questions, problems, and if you find any misconfigurations in this GitHub repository, you can open issues. And also, you can open pull requests. If you want to add any features, any codes in this GitHub repository, you can open pull request. So overall, your contributions means a lot to me. Okay, thank you very much. So let's start with installing Grafana within our Kubernetes environment using its Helm chart. So I go to my terminal, I type sudo, and for the first step, I type Helm install Grafana-n Grafana, and its Helm chart is Grafana/Grafana. Okay. Very good. Grafana namespace is not available within my Kubernetes environment, so I need to add an additional switch. Create namespace. Very good. So now Grafana has been installed within my Kubernetes environment. So to prove that, I type kubectl get pod-n Grafana. Very good. My pod is up and running. So if I type kubectl get svc instead of pod, you just can see that Grafana has a service. Its name is Grafana and its type is cluster IP. Cluster IP means that, as you know, I need to connect to Grafana using its dashboard UI, but its the service related to Grafana is cluster IP. It means that I cannot connect to Grafana service from outside of Kubernetes cluster. But to expose this service, I just can use node port instead of cluster IP. If you want, you can convert the type of this service from cluster IP to node port to expose the service, or using Nginx. Or for test purposes, you can just use a kubectl port forward to expose the service related to Grafana. Okay, so I type kubectl port forward svc / Grafana, the service related to Grafana -n Grafana. Very good. And as you can see here, the default port of Grafana is 80. So I just can map 8080 from my local machine to 80 from inside the Grafana's container. Okay. So let's go to terminal and I type localhost 8080. And this is the login page related to Grafana. Okay. The default username of Grafana is admin. So I just type admin, but the password is a secret within my Kubernetes environment. So I just need to open another terminal here. I type sudo. Very good. I type kubectl get secret -n Grafana. There is a secret here called Grafana. So I type kubectl get secret Grafana -n Grafana -o JSON path .data.admin password and pipe it to base 64 -d. This is the password related to Grafana admin. I copy and paste it here. Very good. We are within Grafana's dashboard here. At the beginning, Grafana has no data by default. It means that to start using Grafana, you just need to add a data source to Grafana to visualize its data. For example, you can connect Loki as a data source to Grafana to visualize its logs and so on. Okay. So to do that, first of all, you just need to search and type here data sources. And I click on add data source. There is a long list of available data sources here. You can connect all of them to Grafana to visualize their data. Okay. For example, you can connect Prometheus to visualize its metrics here. You can connect Loki to Grafana to visualize its logs and so on. For example, you can connect databases to visualize their queries as well. Okay. So, but in this case, as you know, Loki is now available in my environment, and I decided to connect Loki to Grafana as a new data source. Okay. So to do that, I click on Loki to add Loki as a data source to Grafana. Very good. As you can see here, data source added to Grafana. So if I go back to data sources page, you can see that there is a new data source here, and its type is Loki. Very good. The most important section for each data source is connection section, URL. This is a URL where I can connect my data source to Grafana. Okay. As you probably know, we installed Grafana Loki through scalable mode, and we have many different types of components of Loki within our environment. So to prove that, if I type kubectl get svc-n Loki, there is a long list of available services related to Loki within my Kubernetes cluster. But the most important thing here is that if you want to connect Loki to Grafana, you just need to use Loki-gateway as a service. As its name, this is a gateway to connect Loki to Grafana. Okay, so I just need to use this service. I copy its name. Let's go here. I type http:// and the name of the service, Loki-gateway. Okay. But as you can see here, Loki-gateway as a service has been located within Loki namespace. So I just need to specify its namespace. So I type .Loki. This is the namespace related to this service. Okay. Let's scroll down here and I click on Save and Test. And as you can see, data source successfully connected. Very good. If you probably remember from the previous section, I explained about multi-tenancy. I said that if you enable authentication within your Loki's instance, it means that whenever you want to make a request to Loki API endpoint, you have to specify a HTTP header in your request. And its HTTP header will be its Scorp org ID, and its value must be the tenant ID. Okay? But in this course, I disabled authentication, which means that I don't need to specify this HTTP header within my requests. Okay? But when you enable authentication for your Loki's instance, you have to specify this HTTP header whenever you make a request. So to do that, you can click on HTTP headers here and add header, and you can specify your header and its value as well. But as I said earlier, authentication for my Loki's instance has been disabled, so I don't need to enable and specify this HTTP header here. Okay? Very good. I click on Save and Test again. Add HTTP header. I need to remove HTTP header from here. Okay, data source successfully connected. Very good. We have a new problem here. The problem is that whenever you want to add a new data source, To Grafana's instance, you have to do that manually. For example, you can click on add the data source, find your data source, enter your information, and so on. So it's so difficult. The preferred way and recommended way is using code. For example, whenever you install your Grafana's instance using its Helm chart, your data sources will be added automatically and you don't need to do any manual operations, okay? So to do that, to show you how it works, let's open my VS Code from here. And these are all the values related to Grafana's Helm chart, okay? It has a very important section called data sources, where you can define your data sources, multiple data sources if you want. And whenever you install your Grafana's instance inside your Kubernetes cluster, these data sources will be added to your Grafana's instance, okay? So it's very, very useful. To show you how it works, I go to logs-loki directory, and we have a file here called Grafana values. Very good. And these are all the values related to connecting Loki to Grafana. Okay. The name of the data source is Loki. The type is Loki as well. The URL is loki-gateway.loki. As you know, this service is now available within my Kubernetes cluster, so it's valid. Access is proxy, its default is true. Default is true means that, for example, let's imagine that we have multiple data sources within my Grafana's instance. So I have to specify which data source will be your default data source, okay? So you can do that with is default true. Editable true. If I set editable to false, it means that your data source, you cannot edit your data source through dashboard UI, okay? And you can edit your data source using these lines of codes. And if you want to edit your data source through its dashboard as well, you can set it to true. It means that your data source will be editable through its dashboard UI as well. Very good. So I set it to true. First of all, let's delete the previous data source that we added manually. Let's delete it. Very good. So as you can see here, we have no data sources here. You can upgrade your Helm chart to the newer version, or you can uninstall it and install it again. For example, I can uninstall my Grafana Helm chart, and let's install it again using new Helm chart. I mean new files that we created earlier. So I type helm install grafana-n grafana/grafana, but in this time, I can specify my newly created file, Grafana values, okay? Very good. The Grafana pod is now up and running. If I type kubectl get pod-n Grafana, my pod is now up and running. Very good. I need to use port forward to expose my service as well. And its secret, I think, has been changed. Yeah. So I copy this secret. First of all, I need to refresh this page to redirect to login page. I type admin and the password is this. Very good. Let's go to data source here. Yeah. Loki, as you can see here, Loki as data source has been added to my Grafana's instance using lines of codes. It means that I don't need to add my data source manually. It's very, very useful. Okay, it was about connecting Grafana Loki to Grafana as a data source to visualize our logs. In the next section, I'm gonna install a collector within our Kubernetes cluster to collect the logs of our application and push them to Loki, okay? We have different choices as a collector, such as Promptail, Filebeat, Grafana Agent, and so on. But for this amazing stack, I'm gonna use Grafana Agent. Grafana Agent is responsible to collect the logs as well as metrics, traces, and so on. So it's a powerful and useful tool. So I'm gonna install Grafana Agent within our cluster, but before that, let's go to the documentation of Grafana Agent. I'm gonna show you something. So I type Grafana Agent documentation. I click on it. As you see here, we have 3 different modes of Grafana Agent: static mode, Kubernetes operator, and flow mode. In this course, I'm gonna cover static mode as well as static mode Kubernetes operator. For this section, I mean for Grafana Loki, I'm gonna use static mode Kubernetes operator. And for the next section, I'm in Grafana Mimir and Grafana Tempo, I'm gonna use static mode, okay? So let's start installing Grafana Agent within our Kubernetes cluster using static mode Kubernetes operator. And my choice is install the operator with Helm. If you are familiar with the concept of operator, you should know that what is operator. Operator means that when you install the operator of an application, means that it's going to install a set of CRDs for that application within your Kubernetes cluster, as well as a controller. A controller of that application is responsible to manage the life cycle of that application. So you will have a set of CRDs as well as a controller to manage your application, okay? So to install the operator with Helm, the first step is adding the repository related to Grafana. This repository is available within my environment, so I don't need to add it again. But if it's not exist for you, you can add it. So if I type Helm repo list, you can see that Grafana repository is available in my environment. The next step is installing the chart, okay? Grafana/Grafana Agent Operator. So I copy this line and I type it here. Instead of my release, I type, for example, collector, okay? Helm install collector Grafana/Grafana Agent Operator in Grafana, for example, agent namespace. This namespace is not available, so I need to use -- create namespace as a switch. Okay, so Grafana Agent will be installed in Grafana Agent namespace. Okay, so I type it here and then I enter. Very good. It has been deployed in my Kubernetes cluster. So if I type kubectl get pod -n Grafana Agent, you can see that the pod related to Grafana Agent has been deployed within my Kubernetes cluster. Very good. As I said earlier, Grafana Agent Operator has many different CRDs and resources. So let's go back to the documentation of Grafana Agent to show you something. First of all, I'm gonna click on Deploy Operator Resources from here. And these are all the resources related to Grafana Agent Operator. You can deploy all of them within your cluster for your metrics and logs, or deploying some of them based on your needs. For example, if you're just going to use Grafana Agent Operator for your logs, you can deploy Grafana Agent as well as log instance and pod logs. Or if you're just going to use Grafana Agent Operator for your metrics, you can deploy Grafana Agent as well as metric instance, pod monitor, probe, and service monitor, okay? It depends on your needs. For this scenario, I'm gonna use Grafana Agent for our logs. So the first manifest I'm gonna use is Grafana Agent. So I can copy this manifest. Let's go to the terminal and let's go to logs Loki directory. And let's create a new directory here called agent and go to that. And let's create a new file such as Grafana agent.yaml. Very good. This manifest is ready to use. It's suitable, so it means that you don't need to customize it and modify it. But the only thing you need to customize if you want is changing the namespace. For example, this manifest is going to deploy within default namespace. You can change it based on your needs. For example, I can change it from default to Grafana Agent, as well as for our service account. I change it from default to Grafana Agent, and cluster role and cluster role binding. Okay. The next resource I'm gonna deploy is log instance. This is metric instance. This is just for our metrics. I don't want to use it here. Service monitor, and yeah, this is the manifest related to log instance. It's so important, and we need to deploy this resource within our cluster. Okay, so I copy this manifest, and let's go to terminal, and I create a new file called, for example, log instance.yaml. Then I paste it here. Very good. First of all, let's change the namespace from default to Grafana Agent. Very good. And as you probably know, we're not going to use basic authentication for our Loki instance, so I can remove these lines from here. Very good. The most important section of this manifest is URL. Grafana Agent operator is going to use this URL to push the logs to your Loki instance. So this URL is related to your Loki instance. It's so important. So I type http loki-gateway.loki.svc.cluster.local/Loki API v1 push. This is the URL related to your Loki instance, and Grafana Agent operator is going to use this URL to push your logs. Very good. I save the file. And the last resource I'm gonna deploy within my cluster is pod logs. So I copy this manifest, and let's create a new file called podlogs.yaml. So let's change the namespace from default to Grafana Agent. Very good. This manifest has an important section called namespace selector and match names. Grafana Agent operator is going to use the list of these namespaces here to collect the logs of the application from these namespaces. For example, I can add or remove any namespaces I want. For example, I can add Nginx namespace as well as Grafana namespace. So Grafana Agent operator will use these namespaces to collect the logs of those applications. For example, if I type kubectl get pod-n Nginx, you can see that there is a pod and Nginx namespace. So Grafana Agent operator is going to collect the logs of this application from Nginx namespace. So you can add or remove any namespace as you want. Very good. Let's deploy all these resources together. So I can type kubectl apply-f agent. And all these resources have been deployed within my Kubernetes cluster. So if I type kubectl get pod-n Grafana agent, the new pod is in container creating status. So I'm gonna wait for it to be up and running. Okay, we have 2 pods up and running in Grafana Agent namespace, and I think everything is working well. But to be sure, let's see the logs of Grafana Agent pod, okay? So I click on it and I type kubectl logs this pod in Grafana Agent namespace. As I can see here in this log, it seems that Grafana Agent is not working well because we have no message related to collecting logs from Grafana agent and pushing them to Loki. So I think we have a problem here. But to be sure, let's go to the dashboard of Grafana, okay? We have a section here called Explore. Explore helps you a lot to explore your data sources. Helps you to run queries against your data sources as well, okay? In top of this page, we have a section called Outline where you can select your data source. Whenever you have multiple data sources, you can select a specific data source to run queries against that data source, okay? But in this case, I'm just using a single data source and my single choice is Loki as well. So I click on Loki as my single data source, okay? The next section is labels. If you want to run queries against your data source, you have to do that through labels. So you need to specify your label and its value as well. And you can see its result here, okay? So if I click on select label, okay, I just can see just 3 different labels. But Grafana Agent, I think Grafana Agent is not working well here because Grafana Agent is going to generate many different labels. But those labels are not exist here and are not available here. So it seems that Grafana Agent is not working well. But let's find the problem. I think we have a problem. But where is the problem, okay? Let's go to agent directory to see our files once again to find the problem. Let's start with Grafana agent.yaml. Okay. We have 4 different resources in this file, okay? The first resource is Grafana agent, which has been deployed in Grafana agent namespace, and I think everything is working well with this resource. The second resource is service account. This service account is related to Grafana agent and its name is Grafana agent and it has been deployed in Grafana agent namespace, okay? The third and the fourth resource are cluster role and cluster role binding. And okay, I think I found the problem. I need to change this default namespace to Grafana agent namespace. Okay, I forgot to change it. But let's explain the problem. As you can see here, we have a service account called Grafana agent, which must have some permissions within the cluster, okay? So to do that, we are using cluster role and cluster role binding to grant these permissions to that service account. And cluster role binding is responsible to bind these permissions to the service account. But if you look at this section, I mean subjects, it points to an invalid service account because it was pointing to a service account called Grafana agent within default namespace. So I needed to change the namespace from default to Grafana agent. So it now points to a valid service account. A service account called Grafana agent in Grafana agent namespace, okay? So I save the file and I apply this file once again. So I type Grafana agent.yaml, very good. And it has been configured, okay? So if I type kubectl get pod-n Grafana agent, very good. Let's see its log once again. Very good. It seems that it's working well, and now Grafana agent is collecting logs and push them to Loki. So, to be sure, let's go to Explore once again and refresh this page. And yeah, these are all the labels related to Grafana agent. Grafana agent is now generating these labels, and these labels are now available in Grafana. So it's working well. So now I'm going to show you that how you can run queries against your log lines, okay? As I said earlier, if you remember, we have an application in Nginx namespace, and I'm going to show you the logs related to this application, okay? So let's go back to the terminal, and if I type kubectl get pod-n Nginx, we have a pod up and running in this namespace, and it has a service as well. The type of the service is node port, and it means that I can access the service from outside of the Kubernetes cluster through this node port. Okay, I copy this port, I go to the browser, and I type localhost and the node port related to this application. Welcome to Nginx. This is our application, and I'm gonna show you the logs of our Nginx instance from here. Okay, let's go back to Explorer from here, and I click on Select Labels. We have different choices. For example, I can click on Namespace, okay? And then I can click Select Value, and the value can be Grafana or Nginx. If you probably remember, we had a resource called podlogs. Podlogs and namespace selector. If you look at this section, we have a section called namespace selector, and we have 3 different namespaces. It means that Grafana Agent is now responsible to collect the logs of the application from these namespaces: default, Nginx, and Grafana, okay? Right now, we have no application up and running in default namespace, but Nginx and Grafana namespaces have applications up and running. Because of that, Grafana Agent detected Grafana and Nginx namespaces from here. So, if I click on Nginx namespace, and then if I click, for example, I'm gonna show you the logs of this namespace from last 5 minutes. So I can click on it. And as you can see here, we have 3 different log lines from last 5 minutes for Nginx namespace. So if I refresh this page, for example, multiple times, and if I run query once again, you will have more log lines from Nginx namespace. Okay, these are all log lines related to our application, which has been located in Nginx namespace. This application. Okay, so I click on one of them here. You can see a set of labels, a set of key value pairs from here. Okay, the only way to run queries against your log lines is using key value pairs, is using labels. For example, you can extract those log lines which includes level info or namespace Nginx or something like that, okay? If you're familiar with the pattern of Nginx logs, you should know that it has important fields. For example, it includes HTTP method, HTTP version, HTTP status code, and so on. They're so important. But the most important question is that how can I extract those log lines which includes a specific status code? Is it possible right now? Definitely not, because we have no labels here related to HTTP status code or HTTP method or HTTP version or something like that. Okay? So we need to add these labels here. Okay? So we need to modify our data before sending them to Loki. If you have experience working with tools such as Promptail or Logstash, you should know that they are able to modify data before sending them to a log server. You can do the same using Grafana Agent. Grafana Agent is able to modify data before sending them to Loki. You can use the pipeline stages of Grafana Agent. And in this case, I'm gonna add HTTP method and HTTP status code to our log lines related to Nginx namespace. Okay? But before that, let's go to Minayo to see our indices and chunks. Okay? So I type minayo-local and I enter my username and password. Very good. We have a bucket here called Loki-chunks, and now it has 54 objects. If I click on it, we have a file here, Loki cluster seed.json. This is a JSON file related to the information of our Loki's instance. And also we have a directory here called index, and it includes our indices. As I said multiple times in this course, index is not about the content of our logs, it's just about the metadata of our logs, and it helps us to run queries against our log lines, okay? And it helps us to find our log lines easier. The second directory here is fake. Its name is fake, but it's real, okay? It's about our chunks. It includes our chunks, okay? So the log entries will be added to our chunks. As I said earlier, I'm using a single tenant ID for this course. Because of that, the default tenant ID and default name is fake. But if you enable multi-tenancy for your Loki's instance, you have to specify your tenant ID whenever you make a request to Loki API endpoint. But now I'm using a single tenant ID and its default ID and its default name is fake. And it includes our chunks, okay? Very good. Let's go to our Grafana agent to work with its pipeline stages to modify our data before sending them to Loki, because I'm going to add HTTP status code and HTTP method to our log lines related to Nginx, okay? To show you how it works, first of all, we need to read the documentation of Grafana Loki, okay? So I type Grafana Loki documentation. I click on it. And then I click on send data, prompt tail, and pipeline stages. Okay. This section is a collection of all the stages prompt tail supports in a pipeline. This is not just about prompt tail. All these stages are valid for Grafana agent as well. Okay, so there is no problem. First of all, let's imagine that we have a log pattern in JSON format. If you have a log pattern in JSON format, you should use JSON from here, okay? So I can click on it. And let's look at this example from here. First of all, let's imagine that we have a log message, something like this. It has 3 different key value pairs: log, stream, and time, okay? And I'm gonna add 3 different labels to my log lines, okay? These keys are output, stream, and timestamp. These keys will be added to my log lines. But what about their values? Their values will be log, stream, and time. The actual value of log is log message. The actual value of a stream will be steady error. The actual value of time is this. So finally, these key value pairs will be added to your log lines. Output as a key, stream as a key, timestamp as a key, and these are our values as well. Okay, but in this case, I'm gonna use log lines for my Nginx, and Nginx has a different pattern, so I cannot use JSON as a pipeline stage. Because of that, my choice from here is regex or regular expression. If you have experience working with Linux systems, you should be familiar with regular expressions, and it helps you a lot to extract a specific string from a file, from a line, from multiple lines, and so on. It's very, very useful. So I'm going to use a regular expression for Nginx patterns, and I'm going to extract HTTP status code and HTTP method using regular expression, okay? If I scroll down here, and if you look at this example, we have a log pattern, we have a log message here, okay? In this example, it's going to extract 4 different key value pairs, 4 different labels from this log line, okay? Please pay attention, it's very important, it's more complicated. The word inside this symbol is our key. So the word inside is time. So the time is a key. The next key is stream. The next key is flags and content. So these are all our keys because all of them are inside these symbols. And after the symbol, we have a regex, a regular expression, and the result of this regex will be our value. Okay? And finally, these 4 key value pairs will be added to a log line. I'm going to do the same with our Nginx application, and I'm going to extract HTTP method as well as HTTP status code using this way. Okay, so let's go back to the terminal and let's open podlogs as a resource to modify our data, and I'm going to send modified data to our Loki. And that modified data will include HTTP status code and HTTP method as new labels, okay? So I open it. We have an important section here called pipeline stages. And I'm going to add a new pipeline stage here. So I type match and selector here. The selector here is namespace equals Nginx. It means that I'm going to apply this pipeline stage just for applications inside Nginx namespace. I'm not going to apply this pipeline stage for all applications across the cluster because, as you know, the values like HTTP method, the status code, version are valid information just for web servers, okay? Because of that, I decided to use selector for this example. Pretty good. After data type stages, and I use pipe here, regex, expression, as I said earlier, the key will be inside this symbol. So the name of the key here, for example, will be something like method, because I'm gonna extract the method from my log, okay? So the key is method, and after symbol, I'm gonna create a regex. I'm gonna create a regular expression, okay? So let's go to the browser, and I wanna copy one of these samples from here. For example, this log line, I'm gonna copy it. And then let's go to a very useful site. For example, regex 101. This site is very useful to improve your regular expression knowledge, okay? So I open it. And I'm gonna paste my log line here. And then I'm going to extract the HTTP method from this example. In this example, the HTTP method is get. But in another example, the HTTP method may be different. For example, it can be put or post or delete or something like that. So I'm gonna extract the HTTP method from our samples, from our Nginx logs. Because of that, the HTTP method can be get or put or delete or post, okay? Pipes and regex means or, okay? So it means that the HTTP method can be get or put or delete or post. So if I change get to, for example, put, so the value from this regex will be put. If I change it to get, the value of this regex will be get, okay? So I copy the regex from here and I paste it here. Very good. So after the symbol, there is a regex, and the value of this regex will be our actual value. And the key is method, okay? And the second stage is labels. And the label is the name of the key. The name of the key here is method, okay? Label means that, okay, we have a key value pair, but I'm just going to use this key value pair as a label for my log line. So I'm gonna apply this key value pair as a label to my log line. So labels in this pipeline helps me to add a key value pair as a label to my log line, okay? And the name of the key is method. Very good. So let's save the file and apply this file once again. Very good, it has been configured. So I type kubectl get pod-n Grafana Agent, and I wanna see the logs of our pod here. Very good. So I'm gonna wait for Grafana Agent to modify data and send them to Loki. So we need to wait for 1 minute or 2 minutes. So I pause the video until Grafana Agent push them to Loki, okay? Okay, let's go to the browser. And first of all, I'm gonna make a request to my application to have a new log, entry, okay? So I refresh this multiple times. So let's go to Grafana Explorer, and I'm gonna run query one more time. Very good. These are new log entries, okay? So when I click on one of them, yes, very good. We have a new label here. This label is method equals get. And this label has been added by Grafana Agent itself. Very, very good. So we successfully extracted HTTP method, and now we're gonna extract HTTP status code using this way, okay? So to do that, let's go back to regex 101 here, okay? First of all, let's remove the previous regex from here, okay? In this situation, I think it's so difficult to extract the HTTP status code with just one single regex, because we have many different digits here. We have IP address as well as dates, version, status code, and so on. Because of that, I prefer to write two different regex. The first regex is going to extract HTTP version as well as HTTP status code from here. And the value of the first regex will be something like this, okay? And the second regex is now going to extract the digits, the HTTP status code from the first regex. And the value of the second regex will be something like this, okay? So to do that, let's start with the first regex. So I type HTTP. When I type HTTP, it highlights HTTP here as well. And I type dot. Dot in regex means any character. Any character can be, for example, a digit, a string, a special character, and so on, okay? And this any character must be repeated 6 times here. It highlights HTTP as well as backslash as well as slash 1.1 and double quote. And then we have our status code here. This digit has been repeated 3 times. So I type \d and then 3. It means that I want to highlight this digit that has been repeated 3 times. Okay? So this is our first regex. I'm gonna save it somewhere else. For example, here. And I'm gonna remove the rest of the log from here. So this is the value of the first regex. So let's start with the second regex. The second regex is now responsible to extract our status code from here. Okay, so to do that, I can type \d and then I type 3. So I type it here as well. So these are our 2 different regexes that we need to have, okay? Very good. So let's go to the terminal and I want to write these 2 different regexes here as well. We need to add two new stages here for our 2 different regular expressions that we created earlier, okay? The name of the second stage will be status code with HTTP version, and its value will be like this. Very good. The second stage here is now responsible to extract the HTTP version as well as HTTP status code, okay? If you are using \/ for your regex in your YAML files, you have to add another \/ here as well to avoid new errors, okay? It's important. The name of the third stage will be status code, and its value is this. And I have to add another \/ here as well. Pretty good. For the third stage, I can type source here. The source means that I'm going to use the value of another stage as the input of my existing stage. For example, here, I'm going to use the value of the second stage as the input of the third stage. Because of that, I need to point to the name of the second stage here. The name of the second stage is status code with HTTP version. And I paste it here. Very good. We have to add another labels here as well, and the name of the new label is status code. This is the key name of the third stage, okay? I save the file and I apply it again. Very good. I type kubectl get pod-n Grafana agent. I want to see the log related to Grafana agent once again. to see that we have new problems or not. I think everything is working well. So we need to wait for 1 minute or 2 minutes for Grafana Agent to collect new logs, to collect new modified logs, and send them to Loki, okay? So now let's make a new request to the application related to Nginx, and the new log entry will be added to Loki, okay? So I refresh this page multiple times, and let's go back to let's go back to Grafana, and I click on Run Query once again, and we have new log entries here. Okay, I click on one of them, and yes, a status code as a new label has been added here. So we have 2 new labels here: HTTP method as well as HTTP status code. Very good. In the next section, I'm gonna teach you about LogQL, a dedicated query language, which helps you a lot to run queries against your log lines and also helps you to have metrics for your logs. And then I will create some different dashboards and also setting up alerts and so on. And it will be very, very useful for you. Okay, thank you very much for your watching, and I hope you like it, and see you soon.